Was talking to me and saying that she had won a couple of poetry awards within the context of the district where she had been educated. So I just thought that she was in the whole thing, and Sangeeta. And I thought, you know what? Is there any way you could write down your experience of the fishing trip, and if it could make it into a poem, that'd be amazing. And she emerged from her room a day and a half later. And she said, I'm ready.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Now Boarding, a new travel podcast by me, Payal Nayar. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Hi everyone, welcome to another Now Boarding episode. Today I am joined by an absolutely incredibly talented individual whose expertise spans the realms of production and direction. His self-employed work he has channeled through his initiative called Habitus Insight. And my guest is an award-winning producer-director with a knack for self-shooting. He's ventured into some of the most challenging environments, tackling subjects often overlooked by mainstream media, such as environmental issues, the natural world, culture, and conservation. Please join me in welcoming on this episode, Eoghan Mcdonaugh. Thank you so much, Eoghan, for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me and for the invitation to be on your podcast.
Let's start by understanding what actually encouraged you to become a filmmaker.
It's a good question. I have grappled with the idea of being in film to a certain extent for a long time. And I had a couple of role models in TV at a younger age, like 19, 20, 21, for example, the likes of Bruce Parry doing his Tribe series. And I was very interested in that sort of type of show where you're looking at real people in context around the world, giving you a greater understanding of the world and expanding your horizons. But I wasn't really sure how to get involved at that time. And I was doing cultural anthropology at Sussex University, and I just came out of university in a recession, and I decided that it was probably for the best to go and pursue financial independence, and I'm a sort of all-rounder, and just pick up a job if I could and just get my feet under the desk, so to speak. Right. And so I did that, and I did that for a number of years. I did that for 4 or 5 years, was arranging events in emerging markets. So still managed to find somewhere that enabled me to travel a lot. But I became tired of that and decided that I wanted to combine my interest in anthropology and all that brought me with still trying to remain solvent, so financially independent, and just making my way. And so I came up with the idea of Habitus Insight, which is an ethnographic research agency, which simply means spending time with people, understanding them in context, and communicating their social worlds for whoever might be interested. And the sort of energy to get involved with that in the first place was to make those kind of findings visual. And through the process of Habitus, become more au fait with the techniques and the process myself, and hopefully move from a more of a production or producer role, overseeing role, to something more specific. In 2019, in around August 2019, I got quite fortunate. I just finished a big job with Habitus, which was actually looking at the impact of automation on workforces in Nashville and New Zealand for a big tech company. And I just wrapped it up and finished it up and I saw an Instagram story that was asking for someone to join a TV presenter on a sort of epic voyage from the UK to Chile without using fossil fuels. And I'd had a wine or two, and I just replied, "I'll do it." And cutting a long story short, we left it was Friday. We left the following Thursday, and I was filming for around 112 days nonstop as we journeyed from the UK to Chile without using all forms of transport that are either electrified or human powered. And the sort of scope of this documentary was to talk to young people along the way about their sort of dreams, hopes, and aspirations and fears around the climate crisis and issues relating to the environment. So combined with the fact that I had landed a dream job, and I had the aptitude, the temperament, and the sort of endurance for the job, but I was light on the skills for the job, I started to set my course like that. And I knew that no matter what happened, I would just hold on to this job for as long as possible and just remain completely calm, even if I was going to make a lot of mistakes. Obviously, there's so much room to grow, but in terms of just the sort of storytelling element, what you need for a story and so on. So that coincided neatly, our return in December 2019 with the beginning of the pandemic. I came back fresh with all of this new skill, and I used the pandemic and some of the downtime in the pandemic to learn how to edit, and went out to start shooting my own things. And then I just knew I am a sort of bringing in the sort of cultural anthropology perspective, human-centered approach, a wide set of life experiences from being in various different places, but also tying in this environmental element, which was running strong within me, but it just needed a place to articulate itself. All of those things coming together, I think you can sense them in some of the pieces of work. It's like, where do humans and non-humans, or where do people and ecosystems, where does it intersect? How do they interact? And what does it mean? Yeah. So that's how I got to here.
How do you, because, they're from Nepal to Ghana to Kenya, you've covered so many different, and not just different countries, but different ecosystems, different very challenging environments. So how do you actually research and decide on what aspect of the country that you would like to cover in terms of the environment, in terms of there's a problem and you go there and you film what the problem is, but how do you, what's your process like in terms of research? And how do you also identify the countries and the people that you're going to be talking to?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Simply put, one of those strands that we can pick up on is that I've made a number of films now, or been involved with a number of campaigns, which are broadly to do with ocean advocacy and or biodiversity when it comes to rivers, and in Scotland, lochs, yeah, and in Nepal, rivers, in Scotland, lochs, and in Ghana, the ocean, yeah, and the waterways. So obviously there's this, I think that from just simply put, some of the areas for storytelling and where the most crimes are happening and the most ecocide is taking place and the least awareness is around marine life, marine ecosystems. Now, I'm not a marine biologist, so I would happily work with any marine biologist to communicate the work that they do, and I have obviously a broad understanding and some areas deeper than others, but so that's fundamentally is very interesting to me. In all those places you mentioned, there's an element of that, so that helps narrow it down a little bit. Now, in the Ghana example, Elmina, there's a number of threads to pick up on in there, which I actually didn't, they're not all intentionally come together. They accidentally came together, if you know what I mean. I was drawn into the story of illegal fishing and trawling and a thing called psycho, which is a practice that happens there, which is just been recently been banned, but is deeply embedded now as a system, which is the fishermen go out and they buy iced bycatch from the trawlers, as they can't really source the catches themselves. And that happens at night. It's a very hot country. In the market, you can see buckets of ice with fish in, and you're thinking, where on earth is all this refrigeration happening? That will tell you that is psycho caught fish, which means that it could have been sitting in the bottom of a boat for months, or weeks at least, within ice. And the local fishermen are even adapting their boats to go out and meet these trawlers and take on iced fish, rather than catch the pelagic fish that they normally, their livelihoods would depend on. So for me, that's like deep injustice. There's a massive issue happening there that is like almost unbelievable, which you just think, if I can just get down. I was there on a separate project, and I tagged that time on to go and make something myself. So I was there for work. So I didn't just go to Ghana to do that story. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. But can I get down there? Can I get and talk to some people? And can I see and hear if the stuff I've been reading if this is the shared experience? And yeah, obviously you bring a lot to the project yourself, in the sense that you bring that not intrepid as such, but it's a bit courageous. I was operating in 2 different languages. I didn't know what I'd got till I got home and used translators. You're trying to work with people in quite intense setting, going out to sea with people you don't know, in a small little boat, sort of thing like that, and you've got
is there resistance? Because now you are actually creating an awareness on this whole resale of, and this whole underbelly which is happening. So are there challenges, or were there challenges? Did you get a sense of resistance? Were you afraid of any kind of a repercussion for you filming?
Yeah, so it's not so much me as such. The work of the Environmental Justice Foundation, or Ian Obina's Outlaw Ocean and stuff, they touch on these issues, and they do full investigations into these issues with the right funding and so on. So I was well aware that all I could do was produce a wide angle snapshot into a number of characters that I would have to be fate that led me to them. I asked a local contact, would he be able to find a captain, a market woman? And then I really had an internal struggle trying to work out how to go and ask people living next to places that are overrun with plastic in the waterways what it's like living next to this without sort of implicating them in the picture. If so, it's,
yeah.
And you just have to get your lines right in order for people to share with you. But yeah, I didn't feel personally in danger. I didn't come in contact with the powers that be, but no, I think I did on a couple of occasions sense that you've got to be very careful that your contributors are enabled to speak freely, but also that you show them the film before you put it online, in case for any reason that could get them into trouble or impact their livelihood in any way. And I did all of that, and then even then I still got one of the fishermen came back and said, could you take out the shot of me smoking? Of all the things. And then I said, are you sure? He said, actually, no, you can leave it in. But yeah, no, you're totally right. You need to be, it's ethics. You need to be it's not a personal pursuit in that sense. I can't monetize from the film. It's not going to go viral. So it's important that everyone in it is comfortable.
I wanted to ask you, how do you navigate the ethical considerations? Because you have to make sure that when you're tapping into a community, that you're able to, the whole cultural sensitivity of that community, how do you tackle that? And to make sure that you're ethically not doing anything which is going to be harmful in some way, or which is going to be disturbing for them.
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. Obviously, you have to go through the right informed consent, but not from a TV perspective, in the sense that they just want the signature and then that's that, you've burned and turned. This is more informed constant consent. you would be trying to explain who you are, what you're trying to do, what it's going to involve, and then how the film's going to be used. And there can be unpredictable things that happen. People can change. People can change their perspective a year later. I think you just have to remain open to that. If someone said, I feel really uncomfortable now with the film, even though we made it 2 years ago, then I have to have a really serious consideration about speaking to the people that are platforming it and taking it down. It's more about the people that are defending, the people that are trying to raise awareness, and the people that are engaged in the topics that some of the films cover, that bring it all. And yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but yeah, those things are in the back of your mind always. And you don't want to be manipulating people and just trying to get the story. I think that wouldn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Then you're not being your true self. And, that I totally get that. So what are some of your upcoming projects that you may want to highlight or mention in this conversation?
I think Sangeeta taught me, I don't intentionally or unintentionally, a lot around through the poem about having an eye on how intertwined culture and environment are, and having a thriving ecosystem is integral to having a thriving culture. They're not mutually exclusive. They rely on one another to varying degrees. Now, culture to culture, I can't speak to everything, but let's take the example of the taro. It's clear. She articulates it all. You can see that one is not possible without the other. I think she says they're two sides of the same coin. I can't remember how she says it. But in the UK, for example, we're very interested in, there's more of a sort of separation of culture and environment, I'd say, broadly speaking. And you would find it hard to find someone that's connecting the two as naturally as Sangeeta. I think that's probably a fair thing to say. And that means that there's this sort of Venn diagram that you could imagine is pushed apart slightly. And Sangeeta's is completely overlapping. One can't exist without the other. And it's incredibly local, her perspective. In the process of that, I'd also like to go through that journey myself. It's not that I'm sitting on the outside and going, oh, no one's doing any traditions around here, because I'm not either. So yeah. I'd like to immerse myself in the world of people that are doing things and not come at it from a perspective of weird and wonderful, coming at a perspective of, this is incredibly normal, sophisticated things to be doing. It must be bringing a lot to your well-being, and tell me more about it, sort of thing. Hopefully that gives you a kind of picture of how I can see it from a diagram straight to sort of trying to articulate it. I'm sure there's a shorter way of saying it, but yeah. So just getting involved with those people that are already on the case here. And I think it gives us also, without giving away the idea fully, with our sort of magnificent site here, that, and opportunity for cinematic moments to lift stories up and bring them into the sort of emotional space and get you feeling things about the land and about seasons and about rivers and all the good stuff we've got going on.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I hope you're able to put it together the way you've envisioned it. And so more power to you. And I look forward to a lot more of your projects. I'm going to be watching your space, and I think from whatever you've done, there is that talent which you're able to, the way you bring the connection between the natural world and communities, I think is quite, and every single one of your projects, from whatever I have seen, are so unique to each other. But with one single, they may be very different, but at the same time, there's just that one connection and that one impact that every single one of your films is trying to create. So good luck. I've really enjoyed listening to you, and thank you for sharing all your different experiences with me on Now Boarding. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.